Hello, and welcome to the Migraine Oasis podcast, where we'll help you achieve more pain-free days by tackling the root causes that keep you stuck in the pain cycle. Our goal is to help you heal from the inside out for sustainable results. We'll cover everything you need for a holistic and mind-body approach to healing. From understanding how pain works to uncovering areas of tension within the mind, body, and spirit that can trigger your pain, and sharing practical tips to break free and find relief. I'm your host, Karen Ash, a former chronic migraine sufferer, certified coach, patient advocate, and migraine mentor here to support your healing journey. If you're ready to change your relationship with migraine and get back to living, let's dive in. What I wanted to do today is talk about my journey a little bit and tell you my story so that you can understand where I've been, the progression of my migraines, how I found the mind-body work, what that looked like for me to implement the techniques, and then how I came out the other end. It's still an ongoing journey. It will be a lifetime. We're all living a human experience in a mind-body system, and this is always going to be the case, that stressors are going to come up. Emotions, strong emotions will be felt, and that may or may not dysregulate my nervous system going forward. It's always just a dance of trying to navigate and make sure that there is a safe feeling within my body so that mind-body symptoms don't trigger themselves. And so this is an ongoing journey. I want to be clear about that. Something about me that's very important is that I'm very upfront. I don't want to sugarcoat anything. I don't want to say, I've got some quick fix for you that's going to heal your pain. And, that's not how it works. I wish it did. I wish it could. But the reality is it's a journey, and it's not a linear journey. It's sometimes 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And so I want to be transparent about that, of what it is that I went through and how this worked for me. And I hope that if you see yourself in part of my story, that you'll see this could actually work for you as well. So that's my hope today. Before I get started, I want to explain 2 things. The mind-body connection is the concept that thoughts and emotions can show up in our physical body. So if we're worried about something, maybe it upsets our stomach. If we've lost a loved one, we feel that ache in our heart. We can actually feel that ache and that loss in our physical bodies. If we have a lot of tension, maybe we feel that in our necks or our shoulders. The muscles physically get tight from the tension that we're thinking in the thought cycle. And when, say, the migraine pain comes physically, that causes thought patterns and emotions to come out because you're frustrated and there's fear-based thoughts of the pain that's coming. So it's just this kind of loop that's going back and forth within the thoughts and the body and the body and the thoughts. So that's the mind-body connection. One of the other terms that I use a lot is nervous system dysregulation, or how this inner feeling was off balance or dysregulated. And I just wanted to explain that quickly. The nervous system is meant to keep you in homeostasis, in a nice neutral stance, responsible for the vital organs and vital functions of your body. When it's dysregulated, it goes into, typically you may have heard of fight or flight mode. That's when we have to get away from danger, and we either have to fight the danger or we have to run away from it, but something is threatening the system. And that's meant to be only in small bursts. So back in the caveman day, when there was a threat of a lion or something like that, you would have these reactions come into the body, and you would either fight it or you would flee away from it, or at times freeze. That's another one of the dysregulated nervous system states. And the point being is, in this day and age, we have so much stress on us, and there's so many things that are coming into our thoughts and our worries, and whether it's the world news or politics, there's things at work, in the personal life, in your relationships. There's just so many things that are causing stress and worry. What that does is it dysregulates the system. It keeps it in anxiousness or this state of bracing for the threat. So that's what I'm talking about whenever I'm talking about dysregulation of the system. I'll have a whole other episode on this very topic of just nervous system dysregulation, because it's important to understand how that all works. And once that's done, I'll have that linked below in the show notes for you. Before I get into my story, also, I should probably tell you I'm Karen Ash, if we haven't met before. I am the founder of the brand Migraine Oasis. It was born out of a necessity for my own healing, actually. I had a major health crisis about 3 years ago. And in the course of that, I started to learn about this mind body connection. But as I was looking for information, it was all on chronic pain reduction, just in general. And migraine was one of those conditions that it was addressing. But I just felt like migraine was very specific. And the things that I thought were my issues, like triggers or the weather or different things, the migraine threshold I had learned about, and I wanted to know more about what it had to do with the mind body connection, maybe, or how I could look at things differently. These things weren't addressed because it wasn't specific to the condition that I had. Now, I've learned that the condition is the same. So, your chronic back pain is your migraine, is your stomach ache, is your fibromyalgia, is the tension in your neck or your shoulder. It's all the same. So, some of the people were saying, don't call out condition by condition that it would be a migraine or a back pain. It's all one, it's a mind body condition. But to me, with migraine, it feels different. And I really wanted a community of people that understood what I was going through and exactly what the experience of migraine is, because I feel like it's unique. It's not the same as back pain. It's not the same as some of these other conditions. Also, at the time, I was trying to find different Facebook groups and support groups, and a lot of them were just complaining about the condition of migraine and asking questions. Have you tried this medication? And people giving their opinions on dosages and all these things that I did not want to be looking at, because if anything, I was trying to find a more holistic and natural approach. And so Migraine Oasis came out of a necessity for me to create a community of the conversations that I wanted to be having and the holistic approach. I had also just come out of a coaching program and gotten my international certification, and I studied in a solution focused approach to coaching. When I was coaching clients in the middle of this training, it was really apparent that if you talk about problems, you're going to get more problems. If you talk about solutions and look for solutions, you may just find them. So I really come from a solution based focus. And in my coaching and with clients, it works much better than just focusing on the problem. So Migraine Oasis came out of that and trying to develop something that I think will help people going into the future, having a safe place to connect and for support and for healing and for education on trying to heal in a more natural way. My body symptoms started long before migraine. I can trace it back to the age of around 7 or 8. I was in second grade and I had a teacher that was out sick. And for some reason, the substitute teachers and not knowing which teacher would be there each morning when I would arrive was not a comfortable feeling. During that year, I developed a wart on my finger, and my math teacher started calling me Miss Wartfinger, which I can't believe to this day that actually happened. She would call me by name if I raised my hand, Miss Wartfinger. Of course, the kids started calling me that, and I was mortified. And so I started to develop stomach aches. And each lunchtime, instead of going into the lunchroom where they were making fun of me, I remember going into the nurse's office and she would let me rest and would give me a lot of care and attention. My mother started taking me to the doctors. Nobody could figure out what was going on. Through some investigation, the nurse ended up figuring out what was happening and it started to resolve itself. Eventually, these symptoms went away, and I really don't feel like I had anything come back until the age of 17, and that's when the headache started. Around this time, I remember feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders about what I was going to do with my life. It was the time when you have to decide which university you're going to, what you want to study, what you want to be for the rest of your life. I really felt in that moment that I had to decide my entire life then, that this decision was going to impact the rest of my life. If I chose wrong, I would be miserable in my job. I had to get the right career, the right choice. And that really was stressful. I liked art, but I didn't know how I could make a living out of that. And I had no other passion really. Everybody else seemed to be choosing their universities and knowing that they wanted to go into this or that career. And I was floundering. I just had no clue what I wanted to do. And so the stress of that was, I really felt. Around this same time, I ended up having a soccer injury. I was slide tackling somebody and I hit my head on the ground. And my mother was convinced that's when the headaches started. We started going to chiropractors and doctors. And from that time, I felt like I had an injury, my brain was damaged, and there was a big problem. These were the messages that were coming. And this started the messaging to my brain and within myself that I was damaged, something was wrong, and I was going to have a problem in the future. Fast forward to university, and I ended up studying something that I wasn't really passionate about. I went for art education because I didn't have another better idea. I knew that probably wasn't what I wanted to do. When I was in the psychology classes, when I was in the early childhood development courses where they were talking about brain development and all these different things, that I was getting lit up by. I really found a passion in that type of topic. Yet I was going to say brave enough. It's not that. I just didn't think to say, stop, let me change my direction and I'm going to change my major. That just didn't occur to me. I thought that was so disruptive and how would I do that? And it just, it didn't occur to me. So I proceeded on in a career path that I knew I didn't really want to do. And I think this is part of what really dysregulated my system because even though I didn't have the conscious stress of that, internally on a soul level, I just felt inauthentic. It's not right. It's not where my path is meant to be. I was getting daily headaches and I was taking a lot of aspirin, which I didn't know at the time was something that you weren't meant to be doing. When I came home for summer break, I ended up getting a cut that wouldn't heal and blood that wasn't clotting. I was taken to a doctor and they realized how many aspirin I was taking and just how many headaches I was having. I was taken to then a neurologist and got a proper diagnosis that indeed I had migraine and was giving then a beta blocker. That ended up working for a while. So I was happy. I was starting to feel better migraine wise, and the medication was doing its job until it didn't. At some point, it stopped working and the dosage was increased. And each time the dosage was increased, I felt like the migraines were getting worse. The physician was saying, no, no, that can't be the case. That's not how it works. That it's in your head, basically. They were definitely getting worse, whether it was the medication increase or not. This is what my perception was at the time. Around this moment, and this was about 8 years on medication, I had the opportunity to go over to Europe to travel. I knew I wouldn't be able to get refills of the medication over in Europe. So I decided, because I thought this medication was not working anyway, to go off all medication and take my chances. And wouldn't you know, I had no problems in that 6 months that I was traveling. And looking back now, knowing more what I know about the mind body connection, it's very clear of why that would be. I had no dysregulation in the nervous system. I was very calm. I was happy. I was going with the flow each day. I was just living life and there was no fear in my mind that I was going to get a migraine. I completely forgot about them essentially and they went away. Come back to the States, I need a job, obviously, and I went back into the industry that I knew was paying well and what I had experience in. So I went into sales and marketing in the hotel industry. And the more and more I raised in the corporate ladder and got more and more responsibilities, I always had a lot of responsibilities when I was young. This was in my late 20s at this point and early 30s. I became the director of sales and marketing, had a team of people under me, had a big budget that I was responsible for. And the more the responsibilities increased, I started having more and more migraines. Also, my personality was starting to develop to get to the places that I wanted to be in my career. So I was a perfectionist. I had a huge sense of responsibility. I was a goodist. I wanted to do good. I wanted people to like me. I wanted to be successful. My ego was stroked when I would get promotions and get bonuses, and people would say, oh, how great of a job I was doing. All of these things just perpetuated a lifestyle of going for more in this hustle mentality and trying to go further in my career and get bonuses and rise up to more management levels. And what I've learned through this mind body work is that there's a personality type that is very present in many of the people who have mind body syndromes like migraine. And that is this very tough inner critic, trying to prove yourself, perfectionism, not wanting to let people down, people pleaser, having a lack of boundaries, not wanting to fail, being overly responsible, these type of things. Lack of self-care, worrying a lot, personality that develops that's more focused on maybe the external and what others need versus yourself. And while this was really helpful, these qualities helped me greatly get to where I was in my career. It's great to be known as a hard worker and be very conscientious and to do a good job and to have things just right. So I was rewarded by having these personality traits, yet I ended up becoming a workaholic and having a lot more fear-based thinking and worries and stress put upon myself than what was healthy for me. So within probably a year of coming back from Europe and having this blissful 6 months of no migraine, I was back to having migraine and back on a medication. This time, not preventative. I would take a medication when I would get an actual migraine episode. At that time, I had around 5 or 6 a month. I had mostly around my menstrual cycle, and we were looking also into the hormonal aspect of it. And for years, just trying to figure out why it was happening, why it was coming. Nobody had any answers. And so we just tried various medications. None, unfortunately, worked 100%. So I always did have some migraine, but I was able to find things, luckily, that would help reduce them over the years. At some point, I also had a few life experiences that led to a very deep depression. And I want to mention this part because it's a very common thing with people with migraine to have what's called a comorbidity. It's a symptom, you have the symptom of migraine, and it's another symptom on top of that or another condition. With migraine, it's oftentimes that you'll feel anxiety or you'll have depression issues or something else will be alongside it. And so I want to mention that as you start doing this mind body work, not only are you helping to heal the chronic pain, but sometimes it will be able to help other conditions that you have that are mind body related. The one silver lining that came out of the depression was that I did go to see a therapist and I started to talk through the emotions and the things that were bothering me. And we dug up some things from the past and we started to actually get some of this emotion that was so stuck in me up and out of me. And I started talking about the fact that I really wasn't happy in this career and this pressure of sales and being responsible for other people. I loved the money and that's why I was in it. But we were trying to talk through what are my values? Is the money important or is my lifestyle important? And all these different things. So this is the good that came out of it. Clearly, that was not a fun situation or one that I would have preferred to be going through. But it was something that really taught me a lot of lessons at that time. And I ended up deciding to leave the corporate world and go into my own business. I started a meeting and event planning business, and I did that for 10 years. I was traveling around, I really enjoyed it. And at this time, the migraines were pretty regulated from the medication still. I was still getting about 5 a month. I was going over to Switzerland a lot because that's where one of my clients was. And through some connections, I ended up finding out about a position in one of the pharma companies, and it would be to come in house, work here in Switzerland. It was just a really good opportunity. So I ended up doing that. And what came with that was a set of totally different stressors than I've ever had in my life. So not only was I in a new country, I had two dogs that I had brought over with me and trying to get them acclimated to living in a very different lifestyle. In the US, I had a big yard, places to walk them in the forest and that sort of thing. Now I was living in a city. It was just a lot of different stressors and I felt bad for them, leaving them all day when I was going into the office, trying to figure out dog care and different things when I was traveling. It was also an environment that was constantly changing. I always said, I never feel like I'm on solid ground. It's always in flux. There's always a restructuring that we're worried about. Do we have a job? And in the first 5 years that you come here, your living condition is tied to the job. So if I lost my job, I would either have to quickly find another one or I would have to leave the country. And this was another kind of underlying, it wasn't something that was consciously stressing me, but it was one of those underlying things that kind of dysregulates the system. The job came with a lot of stress and a lot more travel than I thought I was going to have to do. Over the course of the years, I did well. My personality traits that I was mentioning in that first few corporate jobs, they came back with a vengeance, just the perfectionism and this imposter syndrome and trying to prove that, yes, they had made the right gamble on me to bring me over from the States and to give me this job. I was getting more responsibilities, getting more projects. There was a lot of pressure, and I was always feeling like I was behind. I couldn't get back to people fast enough. It was just way too much. And so, with this feeling of wanting to not let people down and wanting to do a good job, that's a really bad feeling when you have every single day thinking you've worked so hard all day. You lay in bed at midnight and you think, oh, I didn't do this. I didn't do, oh no, that person's gonna, oh, that person expected that. And my brain was just racing all the time. Looking back, my nervous system was completely dysregulated and in fight or flight for those 10 years that I was there. I was just constantly stressed. The messages and the thoughts that were in my brain were constantly, I'm so overwhelmed. I can't handle it. It's too much. Every day, every minute of every day was, I have to get to that meeting. Oh, I'm going to be late for that. I have to eat at my desk because if I have a lunch break and I leave for an hour, then I'm going to be here for another hour and I'm already going home and working until 10. So it just was this constant dysregulated state in fight or flight of the thoughts and the feelings within my body of this hustle mentality, this go, 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 do, more. And it just absolutely wreaked havoc on my health. I was getting at this point more and more migraine, and the medication was not working. I went on a heavier triptan, and the migraines were just getting more intense. I was at 17 migraine days a month. Not only was I trying to hide it because I didn't want to not get promotions or not be given projects because they thought I couldn't handle it. But if I was in the office trying to manage how I was going to take medication, I would need to lie down for an hour or so if I could, so that it would kick in and then I would be able to work through the pain. But I would have to compensate that evening or over the weekend or whenever it was. All that workload was still sitting there. I would sometimes have sunglasses while I was trying to be on my computer, trying to work through. Every time I had a migraine, I was more stressed because I was going to have to cancel meetings and they were important and it would stop somebody else from doing their job because they couldn't get the answer from me. This perpetuated this cycle of working late at night and trying to catch up essentially, which I never was able to catch up. The workload was bad enough, but if you factor in the amount of time that I was losing for the migraines, it just quadrupled the problem. This was affecting my relationship as well. I had a partner who liked to do things. He was active, very sporty. He wanted to go and do things on the weekend, and I was absolutely exhausted and needing to rest and felt very lazy and guilty and not understanding why my energy was so low. I just wasn't listening to my body at that time. I wasn't realizing that amount of fatigue and exhaustion was not normal. I understood that I was under a lot of pressure and a lot of stress and that it wasn't good for me, but I didn't know what to do about it at the time because I had to keep going. I had no option to not keep going. Although there was other things not ideal in the relationship, that was definitely a part of the demise because it was not fun to be my caretaker and constantly be bringing me up an ice pack or seeing me suffer and not be able to do things. The end of the relationship came in the same year that I lost both of my dogs. And I didn't do it on purpose at the time, but I absolutely could not manage those emotions. And looking back now, I realize I just sunk myself more and more into work to avoid having to feel anything. And that then led to more migraines, obviously. At that point, I was taking a heavier triptan and I was going through a packet of 20 a month. And it wasn't until a pharmacist actually pulled me aside and said, I don't know what's going on, but you have to talk to your doctor because this is not healthy. The amount of medication you're taking is just, you can't continue this way. I did see another neurologist at that point, and we started talking about the new CGRPs were coming out. and I was eligible in 2019 to go on them. And that actually was significant because the first dosage I started on, I was able to reduce the migraine by half. I was still getting 9 a month. So within a few months of this, I went on a double dose and was able to reduce it down even more. So I was getting around 3 a month, but I was thrilled with that because I felt so much better. I got a lot of days back. But around this time, I was getting other symptoms. So it was coming out in chest pain and heart palpitations. I was waking up at night in little panics of feeling like, oh, I didn't get back to this person, or I forgot to do this, or there were all these different racing thoughts going on. I had trouble sleeping. So it was coming out in my body still with other mind body type of symptoms. But I didn't realize it at the time. I knew it was a problem, but I just didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know how to stop it. In Switzerland, there is a rule for this medication that you have to go on a pause each year because they feel like migraine is not a disorder that has a continuous problem, that maybe through menopause or different times of life that maybe there's a fluctuation. And since it's such a expensive medication, they want to see that you actually still need it. So it's a fairly inhumane type of thing because I was just feeling better. I was just finally having less migraine. And a year into it, when I was just down to 3 and just feeling great, they forced the pause. And at that time, it was 3 months. I had to be off medication for 3 months. And then if they started in the fourth month, if they came back 8 or more, I was allowed to reapply. Just even the thought of that happening, I was stressed in the anticipation of having to go off this medication that was now helping me. And what happened was that I misjudged. And so I thought I had one more injection. I went to the pharmacy and they informed me, no, actually, the previous month was the last one and I couldn't get more medication. So in my head, I had another month and I would try to get used to this idea. I had another month until I had to deal with this problem. So standing in the pharmacy, I had, when I say a complete meltdown, crying, begging for, are you sure? Can you call the insurance company? Can I pay out of pocket the 800 francs or dollars? I was so desperate. And the Swiss are very reserved. So the pharmacist was a little taken aback. People were looking at me. I, I look back on that time and I just felt like a crack addict trying to get the drug. I couldn't understand how I was going to function without it. And dreaded that if they were going to come back again. Now knowing this mind body connection, I was making myself frantic. And of course, I had a bigger problem. Obviously, they couldn't give me the medication on this pause. They came back like crazy. And of course, I was just frantic about it. My mindset was, I can't do this without the medication. They're going to come back. It's going to be a problem. I just was feeding myself with all these fear based thinking. Of course, they did come back. I was writing to the insurance company, writing to the health authorities. It was a frantic time to try to get back on that medication. I did as soon as I could, and it started working again. I was on the double dose and it didn't work as well somehow. I was feeling a bit better. It was coming down to maybe like 4 or 5 a month, which again, knowing the mind body connection, I was so dysregulated for those months to get back on the medication that of course my system was just really, it's not a surprise to me at all that I didn't go back down to the lower level that I was at. It's 2020 now, which everybody knows. Global pandemic starts. Now we have this problem with we're going into lockdowns. What does this mean? I have other stressors of I'm very far away from my parents who are in their 80s at this point. I'm stressed that if anything happened, I wouldn't be able to get to them. That was a really bad feeling at that time. I know it was a horrible time for many, but it was good that I was home and I was able to decompress a little because I was out of the environment of everybody complaining about work and complaining about how stressed they were. That just fed the cycle of being upset and having this nervous system dysregulation. But at the time, I was having a lot of other health symptoms, as I was saying, the heart, the chest pains, and finally in June of 2020, I went to the doctor knowing fully well that I was probably going to be written off on sick leave. I really pushed it and waited to the last minute because I didn't want that. I was so consumed with everybody else and not what was best for me. That did happen. I was put on sick leave at that point. I was off work then at home, feeling very guilty about the workload that I had just put on my colleagues that were also very busy and feeling guilty about that. I was feeling like I had killed my career, about the embarrassment of what other people were saying about me, and so dysregulated still. And the doctor wanted to see me quite regularly. I think he was very nervous about me. I had his mobile number and told to check in at any point if I needed him. I had expressed to him that I was nervous I was going to sink into a depression because I had problems with depression in the past and I felt like a complete failure and I did not want to be off on sick leave. That was clear. The advice that he gave me was, we need to get you back to baseline. I want you only to be sleeping, eating, and being in nature. That's all I want you to do. I don't want you on the phone. I don't want you looking at social media. I don't want you doing anything except sleeping and being in nature. And he prescribed essentially 1 hour in nature and walking. And at the time I thought, what is that going to do for me? But thankfully it was June and it was a really nice time in Switzerland. And I took that seriously. I really was out in nature. I had gotten another dog a few years back. I took her into the forest and we just walked and walked and walked. And slowly but surely, I just started calming and things were starting to regulate back down. And I was having less frantic thoughts and things were mellowing out. The migraines at this point, the medication that I was on was still working quite well. I had maybe from the 4 or 5, it was starting to come down to maybe two or three. And once the restrictions from COVID started to lift, I asked to be able to go and talk to a clinic because I really just felt like I wanted more help in understanding what just happened, make sure that I never got back in that place again. I already knew something within my personality was causing me to be a hyper overachiever or fear failure and all these different things. I was able to do that. And it was there that I started to learn about the mind body connection. I learned techniques that I had never heard about, things like progressive muscle relaxation. I was doing meditation for the first time and learning about things like calming my nervous system. I had at the time a problem with my Achilles heel. I remember one therapist saying, well, does that surprise you that it's the Achilles heel? Of course it is. I didn't understand what she was talking about. And she said each body part with this mind body connection, you can identify or symbolize certain things. The Achilles heel is your direction in life. Without the Achilles tendon, you can't go forward. You can't go forward in life and you have no direction right now. You're lost. Of course, this is the area that hurts. That was very strange to me. I just thought, these people are very strange. I didn't understand what they were talking about, but it was intriguing enough that I suspended disbelief. I just went along with everything that they were telling me to do. I had no other option. I didn't know how to heal by myself. So I thought, these are the experts. I'm going to listen to everything that they have to tell me. We started working deeply with, again, processing emotions, processing things from the past. And I was forced to look at some things and get this emotion up and out of me. This is where I learned that everything gets stuck and emotion just doesn't go away if you don't process it. It's stuck somewhere within the body and it causes problems later in life. And through this work, I was feeling much better. And the migraines were not coming at all then. I was still on the double dose of medication, but I was getting no breakthrough migraines, which anybody who gets migraines realizes that usually there's no medication that is 100% effective. So that was great. I knew I was onto something, something was working. I had a lot of stress though at the time because I didn't know if I was going back to the job, how I was going back to the job. I didn't know what else I would do. I have a lot of coping mechanisms and stress management tools that I was using on a daily basis at that point that was really making me feel a lot better. So fast forward to the next pause in this medication and the difference that that year made is going from, like I said, that first year where I was crying in the pharmacist and begging for the medication to this year telling my physician, I'm not sure that I'm going to go back on it. I'll go on the pause very, very easily, By that point, they had changed the rules. It wasn't 3 months that I had to be off medication, but as soon as I got 8 or more a month, I was able to reapply. And I said to my physician, I bet you I'm not going to have to reapply. I'm going to be off this medication. I'm not going to need it. I found the mind body connection and I am healed and I am perfectly fine now. Well, what I didn't realize is this is not a linear path. It's not that you find this work, you do the work, you feel better, and you're cured and you have no pain ever again in your life. As Nicole Sachs, one of the people who does a lot of work in this mind body connection, healing chronic pain space, says, we live a human existence in a mind body system. So there's always going to be stress. There's always going to be things that come in that can dysregulate the system and to cause potential pain. We're going to have to navigate that for the rest of our lives. So it's not that you'll never be in pain again. It's just that your relationship to the pain changes dramatically and you have so many more pain-free days that you're able to live your life and have a full quality of life. This next pause, I didn't go back on the medication for at least 5 months or so. I was feeling quite well. I didn't get any migraines in that time. I went to the United States because that was the first time flights were available again, and I was able to go see my parents. And during this time, my father ended up having some health concerns and had to get a couple surgeries. It was a really stressful time. I was also not sure of what was going on. I had started reintegrating back into work and I wasn't positive that was the environment I wanted to be in. So there was a lot of uncertainty and I started getting a few migraines. Looking back, I just absolutely panicked and thought the worst. I just thought, okay, maybe this isn't actually working. Maybe I don't have it all figured out yet. And I ended up seeking out a physician in the United States to get another prescription and paying out of pocket $800 to go back on the medication. That's how scared I got that, oh no, this is coming with 17 again. I'm not on any medication. This is going to be a problem. And I just really upset the whole system again. So I took the medication. And by the time I came back to Switzerland, it was pretty clear I was going to leave the company. I started seeing the physician again to say, okay, I do want to go back on the medication. Let's do it at half dose though. Can I do that? I wanted to experiment with this. I still fully believed in the mind body connection, but I still wanted that safety net to still have the medication, but on 50% dosage. And that worked quite well. I still was able to maintain only a few a month on that half dosage. So I was quite happy with that. I continued meditation. I continued to do things that was helping to regulate my nervous system on a daily basis. I had a lot of techniques and tools in my toolbox, and things were going quite well. Over that next year, it seemed to maintain itself. A lot of people said, well, it's no wonder the migraines are reduced because you have no more stress, you're not working. And that couldn't be further from the truth. There was so much stress because I didn't know what I was doing with my life. It's a very expensive place to live in Switzerland. And I didn't really have a plan B. I wasn't sure what I was going to do and if I was going to have to be forced to go back to the United States then or what was happening. The concern over my father's health, being far away again and not being able to help as much as I would like, that was another guilt factor and a stress factor. So it wasn't like there was this radical shift of there's no more stress. I do feel like there's a different type of stress. There's an emotional stress and stress of work. And sometimes that is a very different thing and it dysregulates you in a different way. But that's a different topic. In the next pause of the medication, I again said, I want to start experimenting again and taking the medication every other month instead of every month. I'm feeling quite well and this is going to work. I really had a passion of trying to do this with the mind body connection. I really understood the thoughts and the fear cycle and the pain cycle that I was creating within myself and how this was all working. So I really wanted to test this further and experiment with this. So this has been working and this is where I'm at now, continuing to just kind of experiment. I'm on 25% of the medication that I was on in the beginning when I first had the 17 migraines a month, and I have very little breakthrough pain. There are times when I get a migraine, there are times when I have a dull headache type thing and I don't need to take a triptan or any type of heavy medication. I'm usually able to understand why it's come and be able to regulate the system back and be out of pain within a few hours. So it's a much different scenario, I'm also not afraid of the pain at all. I'm very neutral about it now. If I wake up and I maybe have a dull headache, I'm going out for a walk. I'm sending my brain the messages that everything's fine. It's not a problem. I understand what the message is. I understand why you're coming. And it just is a much more peaceful existence and coexistence with this, of trying to figure out what my body's trying to tell me in the time, instead of fighting against my body and really rejecting my body's message and feeling like this was a monster that was coming to attack me, kind of thing. Now I look at it as a messenger, as my protector of trying to get me out of the things that I'm ruminating about, that's causing my system to dysregulate and send danger signals potentially during that time to the brain. And once I started finding out more and more about this mind body connection, I also want to mention there were certain podcasts or people that I started listening to that were talking about this. One significant one was Nicole Sachs. She has a LCSW after her name. And she's got a podcast, The Cure for Chronic Pain. It's a resource that I'll have in the show notes for you to be able to easily access it. It was something that really helped me to understand from her point of view how to cure chronic pain, how you can actually reverse the chronic pain. She has a lot of people interviewed. She's got a Facebook group also of people talking about how they're able to feel better and reverse this pain in all different types of conditions. It's not just migraine. And this led to other synchronicities. So I found her work, and then through her interviewing some other people, I found their work, or I found a book, or the work of Dr. John Sarno, who she worked with and was patient of and healed from, and then worked with him and is now carrying out his work and his messages. Or that led me to the Curable app. And there were all different kinds of things that led to the synchronicities of finding out more and more information on this type of work. Really, I feel like my path was laid out for me during this whole time. Finding the information, it compounded on each other. It started making more sense. I was doing a lot of research into nervous system regulation and calming techniques and somatic tracking and pain reprocessing and all these different things and terms and the topics that we're going to talk about on this channel. And it really led to my path opening up to a new career. It led to wanting to do something with the creation of Migraine Oasis, with getting my coaching degree then and trying to coach people and having clients that have migraine that come to see me, and we talk about what's going on in their life. What are the areas that are dysregulating? What can we do about those? Working on the personality traits, the mindset challenges that sometimes dysregulate the nervous system. The coaching that I've done has been able to really help a lot of people, and I felt great about that. These things were, I knew, the wave of the future and something that I wanted to get across to more people. And so it's opened up a new career now for me. And this feels more authentic. It just feels more, I feel more at peace in my soul. It feels like this is what I was meant to be doing, even though it's been rocky at times and I wouldn't wish some of this on anybody. It has brought me the understandings that I've needed to get to this space. And it's brought me to the work that is helping me, and I see helping so many other people that I want to now do. I think everything happens for a reason. I really do feel like that. All these things just really have laid the path to where I am now. Hopefully something in my story has resonated with you. I'm really trying to just plant the seeds that start this motion that I started to be in at the very beginning, of finding the information that resonates with you. And it may be me, I hope it's me, that you'll continue to follow and I'll be able to help you in some way. But it may be other people that are practicing this same work. I'm planning to do an episode in the future, will be linked to the bottom in the show notes, that will be all on the resources that I used and the resources that I think are great that are out there. There's so many people doing great work, and it warrants its own episode on that. What I want to leave you to think about this week before the next episode is just notice how your life is going right now. Do you have a very frantic energy and a very dysregulated nervous system that's highly stressed and this go, go, go hustle mentality? Are you doing anything to calm the nervous system and to calm your mind? Is there maybe a person who dysregulates your nervous system and gets you upset every time you talk to them? Can you maybe set a boundary this week and postpone that meeting until next week or not reach out to that person as much? Is there something that you can incorporate this week maybe that adds to either the calming of your nervous system or some stress management that you can do? Can you incorporate maybe journaling about something that's stressful right now? Could you add in a meditation maybe? If you're new to that, there's tons of resources online on YouTube and that sort of thing that you can listen to, a self-guided meditation. You don't have to know how to do anything. You just listen and do what the person is saying. Can you be in nature a little bit more this week? Can you take 5 minutes even to go out on your balcony or in your backyard and just get a sense of nature and just breathe in the air? This calms the nervous system tremendously. So just think about this week, where you're at now, what your current state is. If it's working for you, if you have migraines, clearly something is off within the body. Try to start locating what that is and the thoughts that are coming into your brain and starting to recognize what the thoughts are, especially around the migraine. If pain is coming, are you having a lot of thoughts that are making you more upset? So this week, just observe and start writing some things down of what's going on in your lifestyle, what's going on in your thought process, and the things that are potentially dysregulating your nervous system at the moment. And in future episodes, we'll be talking about what to do with that information. I hope this helps, and I hope something in the story resonates with you, because if you see any part of yourself in this story, I hope it gives you hope that it too can work for you. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Migraine Oasis. I hope today's episode has inspired you to explore new approaches and provide some actionable steps you can use. Check out the show notes for any of the links of resources mentioned. If you found this valuable, please follow and subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others. This greatly helps our algorithm to ensure that this information gets out to more people who can benefit. If you're not already a part of the Migraine Oasis online community, check us out and stay tuned for more support, relief, and healing throughout the week. Until next time, stay hopeful and believe that more pain-free days are in your future. We're honored to support your healing journey. Take care of yourself and be well.